The most important thing that I'm sure you're feeling yourself is to have some kind of structure to the day for our students. Now, having had 2 weeks off at Easter, I think this is probably a welcome return, really, for them to have something productive to do. I mean, it's great to have the break over Easter, but it's good to get their brains back into gear and working. So to get a structure back, given especially that we've probably got at least 5 weeks ahead, is really important. And we just want to reassure you that that structure could really revolve around what works for you as a family. And we are saying to students that it is valuable if they follow their usual timetable, because it means that they get a broad coverage of their lessons, so that they can keep that kind of balance, and that they get covering all of their work. But obviously, if there's issues around devices and use of IT, then you would talk with them and work out the right structure for them. So it's about having a structure, a clear start to the day, clear break times, lunch, but at the same time allowing yourselves to have a bit of flexibility, and not being too rigid, because I think that's when we can find that our young people get in a bit of a state if they suddenly realise they've not had enough time to do their science, or they can't access their English because maybe one of the web links isn't working. So having some kind of structure is great, but also having that ability to kind of step back and be patient and be flexible with it is really important as well. Basic things like some of our students are starting the day with Joe Wicks. It's a great start to the day. Finishing the day with a walk, for example, with the family, or always making sure you have lunch together. Just that kind of routine to get them into is a real benefit to them. So having a structure is important. We did, Miss Jolly and I wrote some tips that we sent out to you, and within that we put the suggestion of having a schedule. That is in the ideal world, but it is worth practicing. So to get your children to either the night before or in the morning to actually write down lesson 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, their subjects, and then they could go to all of their emails and to their team's work and look at what it is that they need to be doing for that day, to just try and keep them have that structure of all of their subjects. So having a schedule is quite useful. They could write that. I was thinking about this before, because I wrote mine in my diary for the first time today, and actually if they get their school diaries out and they have today's date in there, they could just write their subjects in for each day, and that would be a good place for them to track it. So that's one suggestion. The other thing to think about is, without sounding like we don't want to dictate to you and to tell you what to do, but I think if there's 2 things that would be really useful and really helpful that you could do to help us, there's 2 really fundamental things that we think that would make a difference. So the first thing is it's the kind of schedule approach, but really checking in with your children that have they submitted their work on Teams in particular. So Miss Adams talked about the fact that they submit their assignments and we give them feedback. The beauty of Teams is that we can have all of their work together, like Miss Adams showed you, and we can give them feedback. But we need them to submit their work. We are helping them by instructing them on a weekly basis, and often more because we're emailing regularly, what it is that they need to do. But if you could do one thing, or 2 things is the first thing, it would be to really check in with them. Have they submitted their work? Have they completed the work that's expected? Have they checked their emails? Do they really understand what it is they needed to do? And to just check in with them and say, you know, what have you submitted today? And just a reminder. That's the first thing. The second thing, if you were able to, this is quite a big ask, but it would be to find a few minutes during the day, maybe at the end of the day, or if you can't manage it every day, a couple of times a week, to just ask them, talk to me a little bit about what you learned today in some of their subjects. Just asking a few questions. For example, in French, it says on the midterm plan that you've learnt about describing your house. Tell me some words that you've learnt from that. Talk to me a little, talk to me for a minute about that. You could ask further probing questions if you've got time to do that, because I think, well, it's not what I think, but evidence shows that if students can recall, if they have a space of time, and then they later in the week or later in the day, they can recall what they have learned and they can say it out loud, it helps get the learning into their long-term memory. So you wouldn't believe just a few questions at the end of the day how useful that would be. So if there are two things you could do, it would be checking in on them that they're meeting their deadlines, and just asking them a few questions about their work. I mean, you could go so much further. We would encourage that, of course, making flashcards, writing revision notes, doing some extra work. Of course, we would encourage that, but that's quite a big ask with a full day of learning. So that's just a couple of recommendations. And excuse me a moment, I just want to get my notes back. I've got them on my iPad and it's just logged out. Yeah, the other thing that we want to reassure you with is there's a lot of information here, particularly that's come out today. We are very confident that our students are going to be able to understand the midterm plans. We want them to have the independence with that, and they will learn to do that. It's got a clear date of what they're doing what to do each week, a clear learning objective, and it does explain where the resources are. That's the bit that they're going to find tricky, but they will get used to it. We want to reassure you that we're not asking you to homeschool your children. We really aren't, because we completely, and as parents ourselves, we understand the pressure that's involved in that. One thing we put in the letter that Miss Adams reminded me of is we say to them 4 things. We say brain, got to get it in the right order, Claire, brain, book, buddy and boss. So if they need to find a way to be independent and help themselves get unstuck, so first of all, they need to really think about it. Can they work it out for themselves? If not, can they look in their book? Can they look at their resources? If not, and I would suggest this is a really valuable one, can they ask a buddy? And that is their peers and their social circle, because they are so fantastic at communicating with each other. So actually going out to their friends and checking in with each other is a really good one. And then boss would be to get in touch with the teacher, just as the last stage, to see how we could help. But of course, we are here to help at any time, and they just need to contact us and email us, because that's what we're on the end of our emails for that. I think I have covered everything there, but I think some things might be raised in the questions. Just to say thank you, because this is a massive job. They will get used to it. It's quite a lot to take on board, I think, in the first week back after Easter. They will get used to it. We have had some superb examples of students that have been emailing in work, sending in photos, communicating with us and with their peers on Teams when it's already up and running, which is a fantastic tool. So we just say thank you and ask for you to encourage them as much as you can. Thank you.
I think we're overwhelmed by having over 80 parents engaging in the session this evening. We had absolutely no idea how many people would want to join and hear, and I think actually the overwhelming support from you wanting to find out how to support your children, and I can see some names of students as well, so really great to have you on board and getting some further information. And I'm going to pass over to Mr. Shepherd, Christian as we know him, Mr. Shepherd as students know him, for him to give a little bit of input from the pastoral side, and a face that you recognise. We're quite aware, Louise and myself, that you don't all come into contact with us regularly, so to have a friendly face with his growing beard is lovely to see. So hand over to you, Christian.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just a couple of things from me regarding things like tutor time activities that will also be taking place over the coming weeks, and there will be more information about that soon. But there is one coming up, which is a sort of personal development program, which is all looking at careers and things like that. And unfortunately, we know that that lots of students were really looking forward to their work experience placement this summer, and obviously that's had to be cut. So it's really important that the students do engage in that as well. It's all to do with sort of looking at what potential careers they might be interested in and writing CVs and that sort of thing. So so that'll be coming out in the next few days through tutors on Teams. So I encourage you to just ask the students to get involved in that and really sort of get to grips with that part of it as well. And just more from me in terms of, I am just so impressed with how all of the students so far have dealt with the sort of the change and how they've responded in such a difficult situation with such a mature manner. I've had some amazing things through. I've had some pictures of some people building forts in their garden and keeping busy, and I've had some audio clips through of some amazingly talented guitarists playing different songs and things like that. And it's really, really, really nice to receive those things. So please do encourage them to keep doing so. And I just wanted to sort of also encourage them to use this opportunity to do some things that potentially you wouldn't normally get the time to do. So make sure that you're, you know, getting involved in reading some books that you haven't got around to reading, or doing a little bit more exercise like the Joe Wicks things, or, you know, going for walks, things like that, and making certain that everyone is keeping in touch with their friends as well, whether that's on Zoom or whether it's on Skype or FaceTime or whatever it is, because I know that it's been difficult for a lot of us to stay away from family and friends and loved ones and things like that. So I think that's a really, really important thing to be able to do. So please do encourage them to do that. But yeah, generally speaking, very, very impressed. And what I've been most impressed at is that students have been emailing me a lot when they have any problems at all, whether it's connections to anything or any kind of problems at all. And most of the time it's been really productive, because I've been able to make a phone call and I've been able to talk through something or anything like that. So if they do have any issues whatsoever in the coming weeks, please don't hesitate to give me an email, and I will work hard to try and resolve whatever problems do come about. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian. Thanks very much for spending your evening with us tonight. It's much appreciated. I just wanted to talk from my other hat that I have, which is as the designated safeguarding lead at school. And obviously these are times of quite high pressure in households, and just wanted to alert you not only to the remote learning page for students, but also our safeguarding and wellbeing pages. If you know of people, or indeed in your own home you'd like to get some support and advice, then there is information there to help you and guide you, numbers that are available. Our safeguarding at ringwood.hunts.sch.uk website is still manned and monitored 24/7, so you can still use that if necessary. But if you also know families perhaps who are struggling a little bit, the information about the food bank and the Trussell Trust are all on there as well. And so hopefully between us all we can look after our community and look after each other at this time where obviously we're all navigating quite a difficult path, and being all at home under one roof sometimes can be challenging at best, but even more so when you can't actually get out of the house particularly easily. School is open, like I said, for key worker and vulnerable children, so please do contact us if you feel that you fall into that and you haven't been invited. Then let us know. You can do that by emailing the schoolclosure@ringwood.hunts.sch.uk email, which is on all of the details that we've been sending out. That's a generic email address that then is fielded to whomever is best placed to answer your concern or query. Just to give a little bit of feedback from some of the questions that have been coming in. One of the questions was about whether or not in the assignments actually other children could see the work that your child submits, and no, they can't. That in the assignments is a protected area between student and staff. The feedback is confidential as well. It only goes to that student who has put that work in. The only place that you can see the comments from everybody is on that message board where the posts are. I've been discussing with a student today about how you can change your profile picture, because that's drawn in from our management information system. So it's quite simple. If you don't want to have your picture on there, you could just click it and put something school appropriate instead of it on there if you choose not to have your picture. Part of our etiquette working online is around e-safety and the use of images and how we communicate with each other. So we are going to be working closely with students on that to make sure that we are all working in a respectful way, not only for our teachers, but also for our other students. I have been videoing this session today, but sadly I only started after my bit started, so I'm so sorry. But I will be doing the input about the technical bit Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, so the videos will have the first bit in, but you have got Mrs. Warnell's stuff, which I'm sure is equally as important. So my apologies for my slight oversight on that respect. And I'll get that onto the website and we'll let parents know where that is. We'll email out to you about that. And somebody else had interestingly asked about whether or not students emails could be prompted to the parent email, particularly if there are going to be video lessons that we don't want the children to miss. And I will have a look at that. I don't know how easy or otherwise that is, but I can talk to the technical team to see if that's something that the students could do locally, just to have a forward onto your account so you can help them to manage their diary. But I will get back on that. Thank you. Lou.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond as well about the video lessons, just to say we have not said that all staff will be giving video lessons. It is very much a personal choice. It's a new thing, well, as you're all aware, that it's very new to us. And some teachers are using it more than others. Some are sometimes recording their lessons, or some are setting work. So it's not a given that your child will get a video lesson, but absolutely, yes, we do email it to them. And also, once they are au fait with the use of Teams, all of the teacher can just schedule and calendar the lessons through Teams, which is how they get the students get their alerts for when the lessons will be. And as it was relatively new, we were kind of experimenting with it before the Easter holidays. Only a few people were using it, but you will probably find now, as time goes on, that a few more teachers will be using it, but it's certainly not all teachers. So I just wanted to reassure you of that, in case you were worried that your child was missing out on anything. It really is communication with the teacher through the class is how it's working.
Somebody's also asked about whether or not there will be tutor group chats and year group chats, and that is something that is being developed. We're slightly beholden to Microsoft and also our third party on that, but it's coming, and some tutors have set it up, and some tutors are waiting for the final system to come. We are hopeful that we'll get that, and so that will give a little bit of contact between the tutor groups as well. And a question from Hannah about whether or not the assignments that are set should be set for the, completion on that day. No, that shouldn't be the case. And if that is, please do let us know, because we appreciate that with the pressures on IT in some families, that's not going to be possible to do it in real time. So if that is looking like the case, then please just politely let your teacher know that it's not possible. And if you've got further concerns, then please email Mr. Shepherd and he will just field that on your behalf. We don't expect them to be set on the day to be completed, because that's just not really feasible for everybody to do that. How do you upload work onto Teams? Well, there are loads of videos that are on the school website. If you go to the student closed page, there is a big button at the top that says help videos, and one of the videos we've had made is on how to upload, and that's uploading Word documents, and that's uploading photos, because I was quite aware that some students will be continuing to work in their exercise books, which we want to encourage so they don't lose the learning. So it might be that they photograph it and upload it. So that video is there. So like Louise was saying around the BrainBook Buddy Bot, it's about having a look, seeing where the help functions are. Google is a great resource for Teams, because there are so many people using it now that there's so much help out there with it. That's also a great place to start. But failing a little bit of an investigation of yourself, then do feel free to email School Closure, and somebody will be able to direct you, because it's probably a problem that somebody else has had, and we've been able to solve quite easily. So please do have a look first. 1,650 children at Ringwood School, so that's a lot of inquiries. So your support with that, and I'm sure many of you are probably more familiar with Teams than we are in education. So anything you know and you think of that you can share with us, we'd be delighted to hear from you as well. It really is a collaborative approach to this learning at the moment, so thank you for that. And Hannah's just asking, is it okay for me to complete my work in my normal book? It's perfectly okay. In fact, we would really like it if you could in some instances, because you will need in year 10 to be using these notes for revision this time next year when you're sitting your GCSEs. So it's really important that you keep your work safe, and it's really important that you keep it in a coherent manner so that you can come back to it when you need it for your revision of these topics. Learning needs to keep moving forward for you guys. There is syllabus that needs to be continue to be learned and developed. So keep that in mind, that we're not just keeping you busy, we are really trying to push on through your GCSE learning so that you get to this point next year with the best knowledge and the best information that you possibly can, ready to take your GCSEs when we're back to our normal system of operation. So I'm just going to pass over to Heather Jolly. She is just going to tell you a little bit more from her perspective. I'm just going to struggle to just unmute. There we go.
Yeah, sorry, I thought it was just worth me saying that obviously we are existing in a time where, and I'm sure they'll be as delighted as I am, that there are no detentions, there are no exclusions, there is no way that we can sanction any of your students for not doing work. Our focus entirely is on support. So if the teachers are seeing that students haven't submitted work, they will be trying to get in touch, firstly with the student via email, just to check that they're okay, to check they've understood what they have to do, to check that they've got everything they need to complete it. And then if they don't hear back from the student, their second port of call will be to drop you an email to see if there's anything that they can do to help. And at every stage, the emphasis is on support. It's what we can do to try and help that student access that work and complete everything they need to do, as Claire said, so that they don't get left behind, so that they are continuing their learning during lockdown. You know, we are very aware that they are the ones that are going to have to sit their GCSEs next year, and so we want them to be as ready as possible. But I just wanted to reassure all of you that our whole focus is on support. It absolutely has to be. So if you get an email from a teacher, it's not a judgment, it's not a criticism, it is checking and making sure that there is nothing that else they can do to support your child. And also on the flip side of that, although we don't have detentions, we do still have rewards. We've still got our ePraise system, and teachers are still rewarding students as they submit work and they give feedback. They're still awarding ePraise points as well. Obviously they can save their points and they can spend them when the shop is open, when school opens again, on whatever they want to. But a lot of our students at the moment are opting to spend all their reward points by donating them to the NHS, which is fantastic. I think we've had more than £100 donated to the NHS on ePraise already, which is brilliant. So again, please encourage your students to check their rewards accounts and to have a look at what they might want to do with their points, because our focus is absolutely on rewarding as much as it normally is when we're in school.
Thank you, Heather. That's really great to be reminded of that, and the great work that our students continue to do for our local communities. Louise, thank you for having your hand up. You're so good.
I thought it might be worth just pointing out another difference between the remote learning and school learning, is that students that engage with this really well will find they are getting more one-to-one feedback than usual, actually, because in school they're in a class, certainly my year 10 class, there's 32 students, and you know the quality of the teaching and the learning is really good, but the one-to-one feedback probably happens a little bit less, because you know you have a lot of group discussion, you've got to get in, you've got to get started. So actually the focus and the attention and the feedback, I'm thinking our students are going to find that really helpful and really supportive. The other thing related to the kind of the difference that I was thinking about as well is the timing that you may find your children spend on their work will perhaps be a little bit less than in a lesson, because of the amount of discussion, the amount of new input we would be giving, the amount of time that they're working independently compared to a group discussion. So don't be alarmed if you feel and you find that your child has spent 30 minutes on a piece on their lesson, when you might be thinking they're going to spend 50 minutes to an hour, because that is quite likely that could happen. We will send out some more examples about review and revision activities if you wanted your child to supplement their learning with a little bit of extra, but certainly don't be surprised if their piece of work takes them less time than it would in a normal classroom environment. Just to reassure you about that one as well. Thank you. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. We wanted to keep it short and sweet, so as not to take over too much of your evening. So I hope that we've been able to cover off as many of the questions that have come up, and perhaps questions that you had that we've been able to preempt with what we've shown you and what we've talked about and how we've reassured you, and that we are open to hear from you and any feedback you can provide. If it's going well, if there's something that you think could be better, then this process is really a two-way one, and that's from the students as well as parents. So thank you very much for giving up your evening, and we look forward to emailing you out about where the link is to the video, and please do share that with colleagues, with friends who maybe haven't been able to join tonight. The more people we can engage with this, then the better off we are. So thank you again, and we'll look forward to doing something similar again soon, and hopefully have you join then. So have a good rest of your evening, and I'll stop the recording and then I shall end the meeting.